Hi everybody, welcome to Scuba Diving Magazine, helping you choose your next pair of fins. So there are just plenty of fin designs out there, and you'll get a different answer from everybody as to which pair of fins is best. So it's best that you know what you're looking for when it comes to buying a pair of fins and what they're designed for. So you're just that little bit more savvy when you walk into a dive center and you actually know what to ask for. The first thing to consider, which almost halves your search, is which foot pocket you want or need. There are two basic styles of foot pocket, and they pretty much denote what the fin is made for. The most basic is called a full foot fin. You have a full rubber shoe-like sock that you wear barefoot or sometimes with neoprene socks. Full foot fins are typically smaller, lighter and cheaper, especially if they have a open heel variant, but we'll get onto those later. However, they are typically weaker for it, and they're meant for either snorkeling, because it's a bit less demanding, or just very easy dives, somewhere with no current or anything. They may lack the power to actually fight currents, so it's more just very chilled out dives, or where you're just on you're going on holiday, you're going to make like one, maybe two dives. It's not going to be too demanding, so it's not worth bringing your open heel fins. Open heel fins, they're typically bigger, they're stronger, and they are obviously more expensive because there's more parts to them, and they're made for all types of dives. Very easy ones, very demanding dives. That you do need to wear boots with them, and you'll find a heel strap on the back to hold your foot in place in the foot pocket. The way that these are constructed, it just makes them stronger, and the power tends to come more from your leg instead of your ankle and your foot, so you're less likely to get cramp. They're also essential for cold water diving, as you won't be diving barefoot in cold water for very long. Just be sure that you obviously bring your boots with you when you're trying on fins. If you're going to a dive center, there's no point in just rocking up, because you're going to need to put on a pair of boots. If you are snorkeling, you're traveling light, or you're just doing some real easy dives, then full foot fins, they're fine. But for scuba diving, most divers choose open heel fins. There are there's a handful of new snorkeling fins that kind of blur that line between full foot and open heel. They do have open heels, but they do still have that heel strap, but they're made to be worn barefoot. It's more for the traveling diver, someone like a whole family, so that you can wear like different sizes, because full foot fins, unless it fits you exactly perfectly, it can be quite annoying. So if you have an adjustable heel strap, it just lets you adjust the fit a bit better than a full foot fin. But you can normally see the difference as they're far shorter, and it's usually mentioned in the description that these are designed to be worn barefoot. But those are the two basic designs of fins to really help you halve your choices out there. Now we get to the technical part of the fins. The most basic blade design is something called, or often called, a paddle. They do the job, but there's absolutely zero finesse to these, and power to effort ratio is going to be rubbish. It literally is just a plank of wood, and it's just pushing you through the water. One of the more popular styles is called a channel. Channel fins use multiple materials, some stiff, some flexible, to change the shape of the blade during the whole kick cycle, to change the shape of the blade to scoop water and to channel water more efficiently down towards the tip. These are very popular, and they're very strong all-rounders, which is why they're quite so popular. They're good in all sorts of different situations. Another popular design is something called vented. Right in front of your toes is a very dead spot where a lot of drag can form, and it wastes a lot of your energy. So you'll often see holes or vents to allow water to flow through the fin for efficiency. And that's why they're called vented fins. They typically have chunky rails, a wider blade, but a shorter blade as well, which makes them better for confined spaces. if you're diving in large groups, if you're diving in shipwrecks or in overhead environments. It just makes it a lot more convenient because you're less likely to slap your buddy around the face because your fins are a lot shorter. Makes it a lot easier in packing because yeah, your fin fits in smaller bags. And again, they're quite strong all-rounders for different fin kick styles and different like power ratings. So these are good all-rounders as well. Now we start to get into the more exotic designs. Hinged fins let the blade pivot on the foot pocket, which makes the fin feel a bit floppy when they're on your foot, but it does make the blade hit the most efficient angle of attack during every part of the fin kick. Very efficient for straight line speed and conventional kick styles. They can get a little bit confused at times for some fine tuning like movement, and the hinge is an obvious weak spot. I've seen some divers like sort of step over them and then step onto the blade, which can damage them. So as long as you use them properly, they are a very good efficient choice. Split fins are going to divide opinions. They use a mechanism inspired by marine mammals where there's a split down the center of the fins and the two halves can rotate on the outer rails to create a vortex of the water in the center. Surprisingly efficient. I mean, they've had however many years of evolution to inspire them. But similar to hinged fins, they can get a little bit confused with some fin kick styles like frog kick and some like minor adjustments. So yeah, they are good. Some divers love them. It's the old sort of Marmite adage, you either love it or you hate it. The very tip of a blade can have some very clever features that aren't always explained. The actual shape can have some benefits. If you see this kind of shape, this is called a fishtail tip. That's inspired by the shape of fish fins, and that helps to reduce tracking, which is it prevents your fins from shuddering from side to side as they move through the water. You'll often see some chunky rails down the side of the fins and these little notches as well sticking out of the blade towards the tip. These are again to help channel water in the right direction so it doesn't spill over the sides, help prevent tracking, and the rails are specifically there to help transfer energy from your leg down to your foot, down towards the tip of the blade. I've spoken about the angle of attack of fins earlier, and if you point your legs and your toes out as flat as possible in front of you, you'll notice that your ankle and your foot doesn't bend at a perfect 180 degrees. So some fin designs will have the foot pocket and then a bend so that the blade angles downwards. This increases efficiency, so it is a nice feature to see on a pair of fins. In the water, it's great. However, outside of the water, they can be annoying, so it's worth noticing them. First of all, just packing them in a bag. Bags don't tend to have those kind of awkward angles. They tend to have just straight corners, which either leads to wasted space or bending your fins a bit, which isn't great. On the deck of a boat or shuffling into the surf when you're wearing them, you'll be bending the tip of your fins upwards and you're more likely to stub your toes on something and then trip over. So some angled blades are designed so that they start up higher on the foot pocket, so you get the best of both worlds. You get that flat overall tread, so you can shuffle around the deck, but you also get that angled blade. The actual size that you need is very important. Full foot fins, you want them snug but not tight, but not loose neither. It's tricky. So this is one thing that you really do have to try them on properly. Put the fin on and then lift them off of the ground and then just kind of give it a little bit of a wiggle on your foot. They shouldn't like shift on your foot. If they do, they're probably going to rub and hurt your foot if you're in the water for any length of time. If they're a little bit big, you can always wear a pair of socks to pad them out. It's not the nicest look, but it gets the job done. Too small and they're going to be really uncomfortable. They're going to cut off blood flow. So you want that real like Goldilocks, the middle ground that fits you just right. It's best to go for a larger size and pad them out, then struggle with fins that are too small. Open heel fins, the size charts, they're typically drawn up as if you're wearing 5mm soft-soled boots like these. If you wear something different, like a dry suit boot or a small 3mm slipper, then you do need to take that into account. Pop the fin on, and the top of the foot pocket should reach about here on your foot. If it doesn't reach up here, then after the dive, you'll probably find it hard to get the fin off. Your boot will compress at depth as the pressure around it increases, and then your foot's naturally going to fit further into the foot pocket, and then as you ascend and you expand, then now you can't get your fins off towards the end of the dive. There shouldn't be very much wiggle room neither. Your boot should feel firm in place, and the fin should move with your foot, with the fin strap just nice and snug. But if you find it wiggling around too much, then it might just be too big. There are 3 basic styles of fin straps on open heel fins. You get rubber ratchet straps, bungee straps, and spring straps. Rubber ratchet straps are by far the most simple and quite often the cheapest. They typically have a ratchet buckle on both sides of the fin or the foot pocket, similar to your mask. You pull on the tab and it tightens the strap on both sides. There's also a button to release it, but the downside to these is that you do need to reset them between dives. Bungee heel straps use bungees that you normally see on spear guns, so they're quite strong and they're quite stretchy as well. This one has a huge benefit over rubber heel straps in that you just need to pull them over your heel and the bungee just does the rest. You don't have to adjust both sides, so you're having to do all 4 corners of your fins, so it's much faster and much more convenient. They also continue to adjust themselves at depth. When your boot compresses, a ratchet strap is just the constant length, so it either needs to be adjusted or it slips off of your heel and then your fin falls off, whereas a bungee will keep it snug on your heel all the time. Spring heels are similar, except they're made from a metal spring. They tend to be stronger against abrasions because it's metal, but they're typically a set length. Bungees, you can often cut them shorter to make them a little bit tighter, but springs need a specific buckle design that lets you adjust where the spring is attached on the actual foot pocket to adjust its length. This one's tricky because it's hard to measure the buoyancy of a fin, or at least it's a lot of hard work to measure it. So the manufacturers rarely test and of course list the buoyancy of a fin in their description. The buoyancy of a fin can be really useful to know for your trim. You'll often see some divers describe certain fins as heavy, which means that the fins sink, where other fins can float in certain waters. The buoyancy of a fin is useful to know for a couple of reasons. First, your trim. If you find that you have floaty feet, then a pair of heavy fins can help to bring them back down to keep you horizontal in the water, and that way you don't need ankle weights. The dry weight of a fin does not equate to the buoyancy. So search online on like forums, you'll be surprised how many videos are out there to see if any divers have worked out the buoyancy of the fins for you. They literally take the fins under the water and they let go of them to see if they float or sink. It's not the most scientific in a lot of situations, but it can be useful to know, yeah, if your fins actually sink or whether they float. The second reason is it's nice to know if your fins will disappear upwards or downwards should you drop one in the water when you're taking them off or when you're putting them on. You won't have long to go after it, so it can be nice to know which direction it's likely to go. The colour of your fins is mainly cosmetic, but it should still be a part of your decision-making process. Most diving fins will come in just the basic black. It's a good colour, it goes with everything, it doesn't fade, and it doesn't really show when it's dirty, but if everybody's fins are black, then you just all blend together when you're in a group, and they're a lot harder to see in poor visibility and low light conditions. Your fin colour can really help you stand out in the water. At a glance, One piece of equipment that stands out from the front and behind are a diver's fins. If you can have a very distinctive color fins, then other divers are going to be able to pick you out of a crowd much easier. Brighter colors are also easier to spot from a distance and in poor visibility. Do remember that red is going to disappear in shallow water and then it just appears brown. So think about your whites, your yellows and oranges for bright colors if you want to be seen in the water. This is relatively new for the scuba diving market. Freediving fins have had a range of blade stiffness ratings for a while now, and now we're starting to see that in scuba fins also. Most fins out there would be classified as a medium stiffness, a good all-rounder, the Goldilocks, not too stiff, not too soft, something that you can just most divers are going to get on with. Stiff fins are made for, or they're made from more dense materials with power in mind. They're less compromising and they're built for just pure power. The drawback is that you need the legs for it. You're using muscles in your legs that you don't use to just normally walk around, so you can tire sooner and just feel knackered after a dive with a pair of stiff fins. They're good for training though, to really train those finning muscles, and if you do have those powerful legs, they're good to get you where you need to go. Soft fins are for endurance. You may not be as fast in the water, but you'll be able to wear them all day long. It's only on a select few fin designs that you do actually get a choice of stiffness, so don't worry too much about what stiffness a fin is, and if it doesn't mention it in the description, it's probably going to be a medium, but this is only on like a handful of fins nowadays where you can choose a different stiffness. But yeah, just do be aware that the harder, stiffer fins can really take it out of your legs, and softer fins are more for every day. Otherwise, most fins, they're just going to be that standard medium. Some fins do have some party tricks. Right now, one of the most popular is modular blades. You can separate the foot pocket from the blade. It's mainly for traveling. If you're trying to travel as light and as small as possible and you want your gear to fit inside of a backpack, most fins are going to stick out of the top. But if you can effectively cut them in half and then put them back together again when you reach the dive site, now they fit into your bag much more easily. Some you can just buy the foot pocket as well, so you can swap between full foot and open heel for two different sizes if you're diving a dry suit and then back to thin boots, so that way you don't have to buy two pairs of fins. You can just buy like one fin blade and then the foot pockets that you require, so that's quite a nice little feature. Some fins have hook points at the toe or the heel, which is where you hang your fins up, or at least you secure your fins once you've just taken them off in the water. That's quite a nice little feature. It's just one less thing that you have to hold on to getting out of the water. Recycled materials. Some fins can hinge upwards as well, so that you can walk around on the deck quite easily with the actual blade up in front of your shins. A new one can fold down flat, so instead of having this wide blade, they actually concertina down into themselves. All sorts of clever things nowadays. Most fins, they're going to have drainage holes and venting rails inside of the foot pocket to help you get them on and off without that kind of suction effect. You have these drainage holes, but some fins do have some unique clever features, so it's definitely worth searching around some rather obscure brands and seeing what is available on the market. You can always ask your dive center if they have any specific recommendations. Just do be aware that they may have some bias to sell you some fins that they either need to sell through. So don't be afraid to lead them in the direction that you want. They should give you an honest opinion on what you're looking at. And online, you just have all the choice available. You just can't try them on first. And return postage can just be painful because of their awkward large size. But what fins do you use and why? Are there any that you would recommend to other divers or any that you wouldn't? And if you know their buoyancy, pop them down in the comments as well so that divers can see if those specific fins float or sink, best to your recollection if you haven't done any scientific tests. Remember that salt water and fresh water, you're going to have different buoyancies, so do pay attention to that. Remember to head over to our website scubadivingmag.com and subscribe to the channel for more scuba diving advice. Thank you for watching, everybody, and of course, safe diving.